Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. College football's just around the corner, and we're going to start doing some handicapping videos, getting you ready for college football. I'm joined in studio today with Preston. Preston, I got to ask you, when I know you put in a lot of work with the Cheetah Guide every year, and I'm sure one of the things that you do look at whenever you're, previewing the teams is there's always a lot of teams that's got new coaches every year. And unfortunately, when you look at new coaches, there's two ways to look at it because there's two types of new coaches. There's one where a team just totally sucked and then they finally fired the coach. And then there's a situation where maybe a smaller school was doing better. Coach got the stepping stone on to bigger and better things. So now you got to handicap that and how it changes momentum. Let me just throw it out to you. What are the things that you do whenever you see a new coach when you start to break down a new team?
You have to really look into it and break it down. I don't think you can assume, for example, we had Chris Andrews here a couple weeks back talking about games of the year and his lines that he set. And he says he kind of automatically downgrades a new coach because generally over time, they're going to be worse, which could be the case. I don't just automatically assume that though. I look at the situation. I'll give a couple examples from last year and then this year. Florida, I felt like, was a team that was really talented, had a really, really good defense, and they got, forgetting his last name, but he came from Colorado State.
Yeah.
And we bet Florida futures in the SEC East, which they won at like 13-1, and we had them 30-1 to win the SEC, and they were really good. I just thought that it made sense. It was a coaching upgrade, even though it was his first year there. He's just that much better of a coach. On the flip side, Nebraska was another team that was kind of just needed a breath of fresh air. And they got Riley from Oregon State, I believe, who'd been doing well with the Beavers, came over to Nebraska, and he kind of didn't do very well. I think they lost 5 games late by on the last play, literally, set a record, by a total of 11 points or something.
They were on the wrong end of every coin flip.
And a couple of those were because he made mistakes coaching, and so that kind of makes you wonder, okay, well, maybe that was a disadvantage, for the Cornhuskers. So those were two examples from last year where it could have gone well, it could have gone wrong. This year, here's a couple examples. You talked about the new young coach from the smaller school, Fuentes from Memphis last year, now is at Virginia Tech, a team that brings back, I think, at least 15 starters. They have a young quarterback that's coming in that's probably going to be taking over, because Brewer and Motley last year were just a disaster. Their schedule is really, really soft, too. I think they're going to they miss Clemson, Florida State, and Louisville from their other division. They're in the ACC Coastal. They'll play Miami and UNC and Pitt. But I think they're a team that's going to be really good, even though it's his first year. And he came from Memphis, who beat Ole Miss, has played tougher talent, especially in the AAC last year, was really strong. So I don't think they're going to really drop off even more. If anything, Beamer was kind of just getting played out for however many years he was there, and it'll be refreshing. BYU's another one where Chris Andrews had mentioned he's down on them because they have a new coach. And Kalani Sitake and Bronco Mendenhall left after being there so long. For him, I think if you actually dig into it, Kalani Sitake is the reason that Utah's defense, he's a defensive coordinator at Utah. They've been top 20 in the country the last few years. Last year he went with Gary Anderson to Oregon State. There was some drama about whether he was going to get hired actually to be the new Colorado State head coach or potentially UNLV. Mm-hmm. He thought he was. Told Utah he was out. So then when he actually wasn't, he couldn't really go back last year to be the defensive coordinator for Utah again. So there was some drama there. That's why he left for a year, but now he's going to be the head coach at BYU. His mind, he's a young guy who's going to just, I think, be fantastic for the type of baseball, I'm just talking I don't know what it is. I think it's that finals video we did, the type of football that they like to run. Yeah. And so those are really just little things that you have to dig and put your work in to kind of find. You can't just assume one way or the other and think that, over X amount of time you're going to be okay, in my opinion.
Yeah, and when we talked about two different kinds of, new coaches, I think, too, you got to look at whenever you do have that coach leaves and goes on for bigger and better things, a lot of times if a guy's been there a while, they will promote within. And I think whenever you promote within, you're not going to have that lose that much because they're going to basically run the same system, maybe with a few tweaks. When you get a big name hire go into a program, I think that there is tremendous value going against the big name, because he's going to come in and he's established. He's going to want to run things his way. The problem when you have a new coach come in like that is it might not be the same type of offense, and that first year, you're going to be fielding a team basically with the previous coach's recruits, because you're not going to go out and recruit a bunch of freshmen that are going to come in and make an impact. So you're going to have to use some carryover players, which maybe were not recruited for your style of offense. If you're a running football coach, and example I always go back to was several years ago when Rich Rodriguez went to Michigan. He had great success at West Virginia, and everybody was all excited about going to Michigan because they were just happy to get rid of the previous guy there, and they're all hyped up. But you can't put a square peg into a round hole. It took a learning curve. So it's a situation to look at those things, and I think definitely you're going to be there. And I always go back to the famous quote of Bill Parcells in the NFL when he said that one time in an interview, "If you want me to cook the dinner, let me buy the groceries." And with the new coaches, sometimes it's going to take that second year to get 2 crops of your recruits in there to make a difference.
A good example would be Charlie Strong in Texas. This is now, I think, his 3rd year there. He does have some of his guys there. He's implemented a philosophy that hopefully they have a new offensive coordinator now. Hopefully, it's refreshing, because you bring a name like that was pretty big coming from Louisville, and it didn't work the last 2 years. And so it does take some time in some cases. And generally, it was a good question or a good video to really go over, because you can't just blindly, expect one way or the other. You really have to look into it and just do some research. And I think ultimately you can make a good decision on that as far as the coaches go.
I think, like you say, you can find value both ways, where a team might be overrated because of the name of the coach and underrated because the big name, went on to bigger and better things, but you have somebody promoted within that I think will keep it running. All right, hope you guys enjoyed that. And we're going to be doing more of those type of videos over the summer as we get closer to the start of college football. And of course, we'll have more information in the coming weeks with the Cheetah Guide when that'll be available, as Preston's knee-deep in college football right now, getting ready for the season. So we'll keep you abreast of that as well. And guys, don't forget, if you're new to WagerTalk, after your first $12 purchase, just email support@WagerTalk, and we will put a $50 bonus in your account. It's our way of saying thank you. After your first purchase of $12 or more, we'll give you $50 to spend any way you want at the site. That's just emailing support@WagerTalk. Be sure to include your username so we can get the money into the right account. We'll be back with more here at WagerTalk.com.